3 alien titans arrived. The sky over Earth turned the color of blood. It began with a strange light, not a sunrise, not a sunset, but a deep, glowing red that spread across the clouds like ink spilling in water. People came out into the streets, staring upward. Some thought it was a strange weather event, others whispered about war. Then they saw the ships. 3 enormous vessels broke through the atmosphere, each so big that they blotted out the sun in the cities below. Their black metal hulls shimmered with strange symbols, glowing in alien colors. They moved slowly, like mountains drifting through the sky, but their presence carried a crushing weight, as if the air itself grew heavier under them. The largest ship stopped directly above New York. The other 2 took positions over Beijing and London. Within minutes, every communication network on Earth was hijacked. TV screens, mobile devices, radio channels, all showed the same image. 3 alien faces. They were nothing like humans. Their skin was metallic, their eyes glowing orbs of light. Their features were sharp, almost like living statues. One spoke in a voice that was deep and layered, translated instantly into every language: kneel, or be destroyed. The message repeated 3 times, and then silence. It was broken by a deep rumble. From the belly of each ship, a beam of light struck the ground. The light twisted, forming shapes, and then those shapes stepped forward. They were giants. The first was Vorak, a towering figure whose body seemed made of black stone, shot through with silver veins of energy. His eyes glowed white, and the ground cracked under his feet. With a single motion of his hand, he lifted an entire line of parked cars into the air as if they were toys, letting them hover before smashing them into a building. The second was Shyra, tall, slender, but terrifying. Her body shimmered with a translucent armor of light, and her hair flowed upward as if caught in an invisible current. Her hands burned with blue fire, and wherever she pointed, buildings melted like wax. The third was Drath, the largest of all, his frame covered in jagged armor like a living tank. His fists were bigger than small cars, and when he punched the ground, the shockwave shattered windows for blocks. They stood in the heart of each chosen city, silent, watching, and then they began to move. Missiles were launched within minutes. Fighter jets screamed through the sky, firing everything they had. The Titans didn't even flinch. Vorak raised a hand and the missiles curved away, crashing harmlessly into the sea. Shyra waved her fingers and the jet's engines burned out midair, sending them spiraling down. Drath simply caught projectiles in his massive hands, crushing them before they exploded. In the underground war rooms, world leaders watched in disbelief. Every defense measure failed within seconds. No weapon could touch them. God help us, one general whispered, but in a secure base, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. A different conversation was happening. A group of military commanders, scientists, and intelligence officers sat around a glowing table. At the head was General Marcus Hale, a man whose calm voice could cut through any chaos. "They're not here to negotiate," Hale said, pointing at a live feed of Vorak ripping apart a skyscraper. "They're here to make an example of us, to scare us into surrender." "They don't need to scare us," one of the scientists replied grimly. "They could wipe out the planet in hours." "Then why haven't they?" Hale asked. Silence filled the room. It was a good question. A woman in a lab coat leaned forward. "They want to break us without destroying us. That means they underestimate us." Hale's eyes narrowed. "And that's the mistake we use." Outside, the Titans continued their advance. Vorak pulled entire streets apart, sending chunks of asphalt floating into the air before slamming them down. Shyra melted military vehicles with lazy flicks of her hands. Drath tore through a line of tanks as if they were made of paper. Civilians ran, screaming. Some fell to their knees, believing resistance was useless. Others shouted in anger, throwing stones at the giant invaders, though the stones bounced harmlessly away. The world was watching in a broadcast bunker. News anchors spoke with trembling voices, unsure if anyone would live to hear tomorrow's report. Across social media, live streams showed the destruction from every angle: the glowing eyes, the massive shadows, the effortless display of alien power. And yet, in that underground base, the atmosphere was different. "They can be hurt," the scientist said. "Not by direct firepower but by forcing them into situations they don't control." Hale stood. "We can't match their strength, so we use something else." "What?" another officer asked. Hale looked at each person. "In the room, we use human stubbornness." At that moment, somewhere in the streets above, a group of soldiers ignored the order to retreat. Using smoke grenades and collapsing buildings, They distracted Vorak long enough for civilians to escape. Shyra paused when she saw a lone firefighter carrying 2 children out of a burning tower. Drath turned his head at the sound of improvised explosives going off in the sewers below him. The Titans were powerful beyond imagining. But they were not all-knowing. And as the world trembled under their feet, the first seeds of humanity's fight back began to take root. Rising tension, the world was still in shock. Hours after the 3 Titans landed, most cities had gone silent except for the sounds of destruction, collapsing buildings, distant explosions, and the deep, rolling footsteps of the alien giants. In the underground base beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Marcus Hale stood over a massive holographic display of the planet. Red markers showed the Titans' positions. They had moved little since landing, but the destruction in their zones was spreading. Conventional attacks are useless, an officer reported. They know every weapon we have. They counter it instantly. Hale didn't respond immediately. His eyes stayed on the moving red dots. They're confident, he said finally. Too confident. The scientist, Dr. Alara Voss, leaned forward. Then we use that against them. We don't fight where they're strongest, we fight where they're weakest. What weakness? Another officer asked. They're walking fortresses. Alara tapped the map, highlighting key terrain around each Titan. Vorak controls gravity. That means he needs solid, open ground to move freely. Shyra's energy manipulation will be unstable if she's overloaded. And Drath, his size is his strength, but it also means he's slow in tight spaces. Hale nodded. We can work with that. The plant's small strike teams were dispatched within the hour. These weren't large armies, just squads of highly trained soldiers, engineers, and demolition experts. Their job wasn't to defeat the Titans outright. Their job was to set traps. Vorak's trap in New York. Vorak marched through the ruined streets, pulling entire buses into the air and crushing them like toys. What he didn't know was that his path had been carefully manipulated. Bridges and side streets were blocked by collapsed debris placed there by human hands. A drone swarm zipped overhead, drawing his attention toward an abandoned construction site. As Vorak stepped inside, the ground beneath him groaned. Old subway tunnels had been rigged with explosives. The charges blew, collapsing the streets into a massive sinkhole. Vorak dropped into the darkness, roaring as dust and rubble swallowed him. It didn't kill him, but for the first time, the Titan was slowed. Shyra's overload in London. Shyra stood in the shadow of her ship, her hands glowing with deadly energy. Every tank, every helicopter sent against her, had melted into slag. She seemed untouchable. Then a squad of human soldiers emerged, not firing bullets, but carrying portable power cells. They tossed them onto the ground, one after another. As Shyra approached, curious, she reached out with her energy beams, draining each cell instantly. But these cells were special, designed to release unstable surges when overcharged. As she absorbed the last one, a violent pulse of blue-white energy shot back into her body. Her armor flickered, and for a moment, she staggered. It wasn't much, but the world saw it. Drath in the depths in Beijing. Drath's massive form crashed through concrete towers. His roar was like rolling thunder. Human resistance was scattered, but a small team had lured him toward the waterfront, using bait drones and targeted explosives. They forced Drath to follow into the mouth of a dry dock. Then, massive steel gates sealed behind him. Within seconds, the chamber flooded with water from the bay. Drath swung his fists at the walls, but the rising water slowed him. Submarines waiting in the trench outside fired pressure wave cannons, hitting his armor with repeated shocks. He roared again, but this time, it was pain, not rage. The Titans react back in the underground base. The operations room erupted in cheers as reports came in. They're hurt, Alara said, staring at the data feeds. It's minor, but it's the first time we've made them feel it. Hale's expression stayed hard. Then be ready. We've just told them humans can fight back. That means their next move will be worse. He was right. In the cities above, the Titans emerged from their traps angrier than before. Vorak rose from the rubble, his glowing eyes burning brighter. Shyra's energy flared wildly, casting sharp shadows across the city. Drath's armor dripped with seawater as he climbed from the dock, fists clenched. All 3 looked toward the sky. And then, as if answering a silent command, they began moving again, this time not at random. Their paths now pointed toward the largest population centers in each region. General N. said urgently, "They're going after the cities directly." Hale's jaw tightened. Then we take the fight to them before they get there. The Titans had come to break humanity's will, but instead, they had awakened something else, the unshakable, reckless defiance that no alien power could understand. The final stand, the Titans were no longer playing. Vorak's gravity waves crushed entire city blocks as he advanced. Shyra's unstable energy lashed out in jagged bursts, setting the skyline aflame. Drath moved with a relentless pace, his massive form shaking the earth with every step. Their targets were clear. The largest, most crowded cities still standing, in the underground base. Alarms screamed. General Marcus Hale stood at the command table, his face hard as stone. "We have hours. Maybe less," he said. "This is it. Every resource, every soldier, every pilot, all in." The operation was named Iron Resolve, mobilizing humanity from orbiting space stations to deep-sea submarines. Every branch of human defense was activated. Fighter squadrons streaked through the clouds, armored divisions rolled out of hidden bunkers, special forces teams, carrying experimental weapons, were dropped by stealth craft. This wasn't about meeting the Titans head-on, this was about coordinated strikes. Hitting them from every direction, forcing them into positions they didn't control. The battle for New York. Vorak marched through the empty streets, unaware that human spotters were tracking his every move. Suddenly, a cluster of gravity disruptor cannons hidden in skyscrapers activated, creating localized distortions that interfered with his own power. He staggered as buildings around him seemed to tilt and warp. Missiles from rooftop launchers struck at precise moments, shattering the silver energy veins across his body. Roaring in frustration, Vorak tried to lift debris into the air, but the disruptors kept pulling it back down. Then came the final blow, a barrage of kinetic penetrators from a railgun positioned miles away. One round hit him square in the chest, sending him crashing through a building in a cloud of dust. The London strike. Shyra's energy armor glowed brighter as she advanced, melting anything in her path. But high above her, drones released a reflective aerosol that scattered her energy beams. The city became a maze of shifting light, making it harder for her to aim. Meanwhile, ground teams fired concentrated microwave bursts into her armor. Overloaded and destabilized, her energy shell began to flicker. That was the signal. A stealth bomber, invisible to her sensors, dropped a specialized EMP device. The blast was silent, but its effect was immediate. Shyra's energy flickered out completely. She screamed in fury, firing wildly as she stumbled backward into the River Thames. The Beijing ambush. Drath's massive bulk made him nearly unstoppable, but also predictable. Human engineers had spent days preparing the old subway tunnels, packing them with explosives. As Drath stepped into the central district, the ground beneath him gave way. He dropped into a massive pit. A web of reinforced steel cables and magnetic anchors slammed into place, holding him down. Then came the shock waves, deep penetration. Seismic charges detonated beneath him, shaking his armor until cracks appeared. Submarines in the nearby harbor fired salvos of torpedoes directly into the pit. For the first time, Drath fell silent. The turning point from the command center, Hale watched all three battles unfold. "Keep the pressure on," he ordered. "Don't give them a second to recover." Around the world, human forces fought with relentless coordination. Every weakness learned in the earlier traps was now exploited to the fullest. And slowly, impossibly, the Titans began to fall. Vorak lay still amid the rubble, his glow dimming. Shyra's armor failed completely, leaving her vulnerable and retreating toward her ship. Drath, wounded and pinned, roared one last time before vanishing in a burst of light. The message to the star. Silence fell across the battlefield. The alien ships hovered, motionless, then slowly turned away from Earth. One by one, they rose into the clouds and disappeared into the blackness of space. In the command room, cheers erupted. Soldiers hugged. Engineers pounded each other on the back. Hale, however, remained still. "Send the message," he said. A signal was broadcast into deep space, carried on every frequency the Titans had used. "We are not yours to command. Come again, and we will not show mercy." Epilogue. Across Earth, people emerged from shelters, looking up at a sky that was once again blue. Streets were damaged, cities scarred, but the planet still stood, in the shadows of the rocky mountain base. Dr. Alara Voss spoke quietly to Hale. "Do you think they'll be back?" Hale glanced at the stars. "Yes, but now they know who they're dealing with." Far beyond the edge of the solar system, in the darkness between stars, a much larger shadow moved, a ship so vast it dwarfed even the Titans' vessels. Inside, Alien eyes watched the human message, and they smiled. The war was far from over, but humanity had taken its first stand, and one